My Aloha, this is Diane, Vic, Goddess Unleashed, and today on my episode, I'm interviewing Shylay Ray Sunshine, and she is a musician. She's a true inspiration. I met her a few weeks ago, and all I can say is her music has transformed me on my journey of healing my trauma from my childhood and really being able to surrender with her music and let go and allow myself to cry. And I was so excited to bring Shylah on. So Shylah, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, thank you for sharing that. That was really beautiful. I am, I'm present. Hi, I'm from Canada. I live in California. I feel like I'm living my dream. I'm a mother and I'm a musician and I just love singing and I want the world to sing more and I want everyone to express themselves more authentically. So I try to come from that place of truth, when I'm writing. And I'm just so touched by how many people appreciate the music that's coming through me. And that's what brought us together. And so I'm just so grateful for these connections and for especially just all the women of the world that resonate with my voice or my songs. I've really seen how it's, bringing people together in a beautiful way. So it's very powerful and I'm very thankful.
It's been a beautiful journey, and I'm so glad that you're here. I had no idea that I was gonna find your music and then meet you within a couple weeks because it all manifested so quickly.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah. So, well, I work with Michelle Alba, so I used to take
Yes.
classes with her, and I had heard your music a long time ago, but I had never really followed it. And then all of
Right.
a sudden, I was going through a rough time, and my cousin had recently passed away, and she sent me this song, and I was like, it was existence, and I was like, oh my gosh, I really was able to let it go, and I felt it so deeply. And after that, I was like, every day I was listening to your music, and then like 3 weeks later, you come to the local Florida area, and I was like, wow.
Yeah, that happened quickly. That entire that trip, the idea, the vision, came together quickly but so perfectly. It really didn't take much other than just these women asking me, "Hey, what would it take to bring you out to Florida?" And I thought, "Well, I'm not touring right now. I miss traveling. I have all these new songs. I've got some time, on my schedule where I can take off for a week." And it just happened to work out where these women just really helped organize this week for me, and I was able to have I had such a beautiful time. I didn't want to leave. And I really enjoyed myself. And I realized the importance of just continuing this, I guess this flow of visiting a new city every month, knowing that's still possible even during this time, where a lot of most venues are still closed. So, but if we can create private events, I loved it. I was like, this could work. I could do this every month. Just come out and meet new people. Like, how incredible. So that's how that came together. I mean, there's more details to it than that, but
Well, obviously, but
yeah.
I love that idea to be able to travel. Like that's what I want to do, to be able to travel and teach and share and spread love around.
Yeah,
And
I
I think
miss it a lot.
everybody needs it now.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I know traveling's it's a little sketchy, I'd say, but it depends who you are. And I'm fine with it. I love it. And
I
then
think
because I'm kind of tied to the home with my children. We've been homeschooling for the past couple months, and so it's been refreshing just to be able to get out, and see new places and share all this new music that I have too. That's the most exciting part for me, honestly. Because
it's so
you've been
exciting.
listening to the same stuff over and over again, and I'm like, I need some new material out there.
And
It's coming.
you have stuff
I
done, but you
do.
haven't released it yet. So what's
Yes.
holding you back?
Um. Well, a couple things. Making music is easy. Being in the studio and recording, I shouldn't say it's easy. It's a process, songwriting. And I'm happy to speak a little bit about that because I'm very particular about my process. And it's taken years to observe like my pattern as a musician, as a songwriter, and being a mother also. It's like this isn't something I do full time. I'm not able to dedicate 100% of my energy to it because I'm a mother. I'm always here doing that first. It's always my children in mind with everything I'm doing. So, but my relationship to music is so strong that, it definitely is the first, my number one passion and the thing that always brings me back to my truth most easily. So it's not far from me ever, but in the process of songwriting, it can take months and months and months, just like writing a script or a book. Poetry is a little bit different, but with songwriting, we're working with different elements because we're working with the story. What is it that I actually want to say? What is this about? What's on my chest? What do I need to get out? What's on my mind? And then there's the process of actually writing the music, which I have to say I'm a professional singer. I wouldn't say I'm a professional musician, only because I don't feel like I have mastered the piano. I'm still learning. I'm still a student in this. I'm still learning to read music. I'm still learning all the stuff about music theory because I never learned that. I'm just totally self-taught vocally and on piano and percussion. And so that's the easy and the fun part for me. Recording is such, it's expensive too. It is. It's a long process because sometimes when the songs are developing, you don't always really know what you want going into the studio. You don't know what that sound is going to be until it is. Sometimes you hear it and you're like, I love it. And other times you're like, something about it's not right. And then you got to kind of go back. It's a lot of mixing and it's a lot of waiting on another person because I need assistance with that. I have different producers that I work with and I'm on their schedule. And a few of them have not been in the studio or they've been busy with other projects since this whole thing happened this year. So that's why that's been on hold. I don't have an in-home studio. I don't produce my own tracks. I don't produce beats. I play the piano, and it's a long process for me of finishing a song. And usually I would start a song, and then I'd have to bring it to a producer or bring it to my band to help kind of develop it and give it a sound that maybe, not entirely a sound, but if you know what I mean. I'm speaking like really in detail right now about the process, but I only know so many chords on the piano, right? So I'll write the basics, just like I wrote Existence, Sacredness, and then a handful of others. I wrote these on the piano, but then as I brought them to my band, when it came time to play these songs live or bring them to the studio to record, they shifted a little bit. They morphed and they transformed into something a little bit more full, because the other musicians around me and producers I've worked with have a different ear. They're going to hear, oh, maybe the song needs to go here to really bring it to life. Or this is really going to shift the energy in the song if we open it up and we go to this and we put a bridge here, So I'm so open to those ideas because I want to grow as a musician, as an artist. So I really love collaborative projects, and I love being able to have producers to work with that can help me. But it's just on hold right now. So, but I just got a studio. I just got a new office downtown. Yay.
Yay.
Yeah, it's an office and there's a recording booth in it. So my music partner and I here, she has a bunch of equipment and this is just a new chapter, where I feel myself stepping into, okay, what does it look like for me to be a little bit more self-sufficient and start to somewhat, learn how to produce my own music. It could be very exciting.
That is very exciting. That's a big
It
step.
is. It is. I don't know if I'm entirely ready, but I'm saying yes anyway. I'm just in it, I'm just excited about the idea. And I need a separate workspace because I've been working from home with my children here and it's been a little much some days with both of them here all day on computers or doing paperwork, and I'm trying to teach and I have clients coming to the house. We're doing voice lessons, we're doing vocal sessions, and yeah, I just need a separate space.
It's awesome to be able to create, even though we have all this really weird lifestyle right now, and to be able that you're able to collaborate and that you have this team now, that you're creating new things together. So I can't wait to hear your new music when it does come out.
Yeah, well, you were there the one night.
I
shared a few. Did you stay for the ones where when we got the sound going and
towards the end, we ended up leaving. But
Okay.
I think I heard a few of them. I don't think I heard everything, but it's
Yeah.
super exciting.
Yeah, and you need to hear songs sometimes a few times, you know? We need to hear them a few times to like really remember them and get the feel of them. So, yeah, I shared a few new ones and those felt really good and they're just sitting there ready. Some of them already, you know. Takes time. I go back and I edit and I this and that and sometimes I just leave it hanging and I start 10, 12 songs and don't finish them and then they're just sitting there waiting for me, you know? It's an interesting life I live as an artist and songwriter. I didn't know it would be like this.
It's interesting how creativity is like that, because when I
Mm-hmm.
started writing my book, so I published this book here, The Truth About IBS and Anxiety. And when I was writing that, I
Okay.
was actually creating children's books simultaneously and
Oh
writing
wow.
erotic novels all at once. So
Wow.
I, I,
Wow.
I know. And then I
I
ended up
love
writing
that.
this book called Bubble Bee, and it was for anxiety because my son was having anxiety when I was writing my book. And I was helping him
Mm.
through it and teaching him meditations, but I didn't publish it because of my own fears and I had to work through my stuff until COVID happened. And it's so interesting to see how we can create all these things and they're there in the back burner, but eventually when we're ready, they do come out and they're amazing
Mm-hmm.
in the process.
Yeah, I agree. Wow. Well, congratulations. I didn't realize that you were multitasking, doing all that. How old is your son?
Yes, he's going to be 11 in January, so he's still
Oh,
10.
wow. Okay. So he's older. Yeah. My daughter's about to turn 14. Crazy.
Oh, I have a 14-year-old too.
You do? Oh, how many kids do you
Yeah,
have?
two boys.
Just you have the two boys and I have two girls.
Oh,
Wow.
wow.
Yeah, mine are 14 and almost 9. So,
Very similar in age.
yeah, a little bit more grown, right? More self-sufficient. Woohoo.
Oh, absolutely. And the 14-year-old is like completely in his own world
Oh,
most of the
yeah.
time.
Oh, yeah, her too. But it's hard because I don't want her wrapped up just on the phone and wanting to, disassociate. I want to do things together that she really enjoys and keep our bond strong, because I didn't have that with my mom when I was younger. So it's been really important for me to nurture that relationship and make her feel safe with me, make her feel like I'm her friend. I didn't know if I knew how to do that when I was younger. I mean, it was easy when they're toddlers and they're babies. You just love them so much, and then they get a bit older and they have their own minds, they have their own agendas, they have their own ideas about the world, and you got to not make it about you and just continue to love them and be present with them, and not sweat the small stuff, that wasn't easy for me when I was young with my mom. So this has been so incredible compared to the experience I had when I was young. I just got to say, I
Well, that's
think,
that's beautiful that you were able
yeah.
to transform your own experience to change their lives. Because I did something similar too. So my parents didn't know that I was abused. I didn't tell them until a few weeks ago. But that really
Mm,
affected my childhood and how my relationships played out.
mm-hmm,
So for me, for my kids, it was really important to create that connection since they were little and really nurture
mm-hmm.
them and support them
Yeah.
throughout their lives.
Yep, I know. It's like with each generation, we're becoming more aware of these toxic familial traits, with these like toxic things that happen within our family of origin. And then, you really get to see the truth behind a lot of people and situations when we remember things like that, when we remember abuse or we revisit trauma in our minds and our hearts and our bodies, and we want to have like that safe space to be able to share it. Sometimes it's the most difficult with those people, you know, because sometimes we don't speak the same language. Like my family of origin and I, we don't speak the same language. It's like I'm very much about like emotional intelligence and just mindfulness around it, around our feelings, and nonviolent communication and things like that, which hasn't been easy for me. It's been so hard for me over the years of like just like having a practice of just listening. I'm like, oh, I'm such a talker. I'm such a rebel. I'm such a fighter. Sometimes, like I'll go till the sun comes up. But I've learned such valuable lessons in that, and just attracting those people into my life, who have more of a peaceful nature and who are there to show me, that even the greatest challenges, can just be met with that surrender. I didn't know what that was before. So, coming back to it, and I'm just speaking about this because I can relate, because I was raised in an alcoholic home, and there was more like emotional abuse, not so much physical or sexual. And, but it taught me so many things, and it really showed me my dysfunctional patterns from being raised in that kind of environment. And then I just look at everyone else and I go, wow, we were all raised with some form of toxic familial traits. There's some characteristics we've all developed from that. So that's a lot of where the music has come from, to be honest. Like, really looking at the places where I've made huge mistakes, and then the beautiful things. Like Sacredness was an easy song because that was just an awakening. That was like, wow, I just didn't know I could love being a woman, and the fact that I'm bleeding. Like, I didn't know I could appreciate that so much, but I feel that deeply. So that song came from more of wanting just like, gratitude and celebration. Existence came from, yeah, I want to celebrate humanity, but I want to lift humanity up because we need it more than ever. And isn't that funny? It was like way back then, what, 12, when did I write that? 10 years ago, something like that. And here we are, where I'm just like, no, now we really need.
Yeah.
You
No.
think back that, we always do. The message never gets old. It's like we are always the ones we've been waiting for. That doesn't change. So, but there's some other songs where, the ones I'm writing now, I should say, are a little bit more truthful to what I've experienced personally. As opposed to some of the older stuff. It's it's a little vague, or it's a little like, you don't really know what I'm talking about. And some of them, I guess, I don't know, that maybe that's just my perception. Maybe everybody reads me very clearly, but I'm sometimes like, I'll just leave them guessing. Like, I'm not going to name exactly like the shitty things I've done, or like talk about heartbreak and talk about suffering and talk about the things that are not fun or beautiful or joyous or positive, whatever. But it's important too. It's important for me to process that. That actually helps me process, just like writing about it. Writing a song about it is like, it's like journaling, but for everybody. Everybody gets to hear my journal entry, right? And I make it singy and make it feel really nice, right?
It's beautiful that you can use, your experiences in life and create something like that. And we all interpret your music and anyone's music with our own pain, our own trauma. And we experience so many things in different songs. Like, I have different playlists for different emotions. I have
Yeah.
playlists to get ready for this show that get me pumped and
Yep.
energized.
Same.
Your music is like, I'm processing grief, I'm processing sadness, but I reached that point of joy towards the end. And for me, Sacredness, I hadn't heard it until the event. And
Oh, wow.
I had always hated my period. I mean, imagine
A lot of
abuse
women.
as
A
a
lot.
child. Abuse as a child. I basically thought my reproductive parts were disgusting, and I didn't want anything to do with them, which made intimacy hard. And Sacredness really brought to light the beauty of what the gift I had. Which, by the time I hear the song, I don't even have a uterus. I don't have the blood anymore. But
Okay.
I grew to appreciate the gift that I did have, and the two children that I was able to conceive and have.
Wow, that's powerful. See, like, it's those kinds of experiences that just blow me away, because I wasn't thinking about that when I wrote it, I was just thinking like, oh, I didn't know what it looked like, but I just remember thinking, what if I just was kind of, I don't want to use the term ballsy, but that was the feeling at the time of like, can I do that? Can I just write a song about menstrual blood? Like, who does that? Have I ever heard a song about that? Like, no. Maybe I'll be the one. Maybe I'll be the one to do this. And I'm sure there are so many more. There's not too many that I've heard, but after just hearing so many women's stories over the years of just what that song does and how they relate to it and what it shifts for them and how it's touched them and how it's helped them appreciate their bodies more, I'm just like, wow, that's such a gift, And I know that these songs aren't just from me, they've just come through me because I feel like at some point I made an agreement with my higher power, with God, creator, whatever, just let whatever needs to come through me come, whatever that is. And there's always truth to my experience in all of my songs. Of course, I'm not writing songs for other people. I'm not trying to be a preacher, but so obviously I had my own awakening with it of like, wow, why didn't my mother ever teach me about this? This is, like, am I the only one here that just feels like I've been left in the dark? Like, what the hell? And so it felt so good to just write that, to see like who's with me, who's with me on this. So when I hear all the women's stories, I can relate to every single one. Even if it's something I haven't experienced, I still know that feeling of like, yeah, it's taken us years to really appreciate being women. And then look what happens when we deeply appreciate being a woman. Look at the power and the fierceness and the magic and the beauty and the healing that takes place, and the collaborative effort, when women come together, it's just like, oh, it blows me away. And it makes me so happy deep down just to see like women working together, especially as mothers. That's a whole other, that's next level. You know what I mean? I'm sure you do.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. And
Yeah.
I actually heard from Michelle, which I didn't know, that you actually birthed one of your, was it both your kids or one of them in your house by yourself?
I birthed both of them in my home. I had a midwife present for my first birth. And I'm glad I did because she taught me so much about birth. She taught me so much about pregnancy, about birth, about how to be a childbirth assistant or attendant, which is something I wanted to do right after I gave birth. I wasn't even writing songs yet, when I gave birth to my oldest. She was that was yeah, it's 2006. So I was 20. I was fresh to LA. I didn't know anybody, I didn't really have a lot of resources, but I ended up finding this midwife because I was going to have an unassisted birth at home. And I didn't have a desire to be a doula. I didn't even know what that was, but just the way she held space during my process, and I read more books about, spiritual midwifery and all these things, started to notice, like, I started to feel really passionate about it. It was like, this is really important. Like, this is like fundamentals for just bringing people into this life. Like, this is just should be fundamental understanding that like childbirth needs to be honored and natural birth should be normalized. Like, this just seems silly to me that we're having so many surgical births and so many interventions when this is such a natural process. And I was also 20 and very naive, and I didn't have a whole lot of life experience, but I had enough experience with myself to trust myself and trust that this was the way I was designed for a reason. Like, my body knows what to do already. My baby knows what to do already. It was hard to trust in that, honestly. I kept going back to fear, now and again, but then it was like something in me just felt like you're stronger than your fear, That's just a made up thing. That's from brainwashing, movies, programming, thinking that birth is scary and it's fearful and that you could die. I'm just like, isn't it funny how, like, because the veil is so thin there. The veil is so thin, with life and death at birth. So you kind of need to just choose one way of looking at it. You can't be going teetering back and forth, that's so uncomfortable. You just choose to be in the surrender of it. And that's the hardest work there is. And I don't know if all women are equipped or able to do it in this, face it in the same way. But at 20 years old, you couldn't tell me what to do. I was just like, my way or the highway. So I'm about to have this baby at home by myself. And that's when the midwife came in and she was like, I'd love to support you. And, we can work something out. We'll be very hands off, because I wanted to feel like I did it myself. There was a part of me that was just so like, so independent. I wanted to be so self-sufficient and show the world what I'm made of, kind of thing. It's just, I've always kind of been that way. And so, yeah, I had this beautiful home birth. And probably 6 months later, I was attending my first birth, bringing my baby along, still breastfeeding, just like in the carrier, and holding space at someone's birth. It was like incredible. And then that took me on a deep journey of like being with women, studying midwifery, took a doula training, started attending births. I've been to a lot of births, but I've been to a lot of unassisted births where there was no midwife. It was just me. So I went into intuition mode, you know, and I think that's what really helped me feel 100% confident when it came time to birthing my own by myself. So, yeah, I didn't just go into it not knowing and just trusting. It was like I studied a lot. I studied, I spoke with a lot of women, I read a lot of birth stories. What else did I do? I think I just spent time talking about, praying about it, visualizing it, you know, all that stuff. And I think I did all the right things to help me personally be 100% prepared, because I didn't really have any fear going into my second birth. I was so excited. I was so excited to give birth. It was like, I can wait to do this, to just feel what my body's capable of when no one else is around and no one's telling me what to do. You know, just like a mammal. I really want to give birth like a mammal. Right?
That's awesome. I didn't get to have that experience. So
Many
I came from a
women
life of
never have.
yeah, I came from a life of fear, of chronic illness, and tons of issues happening. And in my mind, I was going to birth my son naturally. And then we got to a point where he was so big that the doctors were fearful that he wasn't going to fit. And, you know, I ended up having a
But do you believe
C-section.
that?
I was fearful. I thought
You
he
really
wouldn't
thought that
fit.
was possible?
Yeah, I thought that
Had
was
you ever heard
possible.
of that before? Had you ever heard of a baby being too big for a woman to birth?
Well, from nursing, yeah, I've heard of babies getting stuck and having to use forceps, and I know my birth was traumatic. Like the doctor actually chose that he was going to take me out the day he did, because I was supposed to be born on Christmas, and he used tools to get me out. My mom wasn't even awake for it. Like she doesn't even remember pushing me.
Yeah, it's sad. There's a huge disconnect right there, you know,
Yeah.
where you were extracted from her body rather than you two being in a symbiotic relationship, where you were the entire pregnancy, you know, you're bonding in that way. And then the birth is just like this act of separation, which I don't agree with. I think birth is a communion. I think it's a spiritual experience. I think it's a healing experience, and we're meant to feel everything. And I think it's when we feel everything, when we feel that pain, that's how we can access the power and turn it into pleasure. And that's what I had in my experiences. So it's very unusual, because most women have experienced some degree of trauma. And the trauma comes from not being in your power, because when you're in your power and you're experiencing, you know, and I'm not saying that you were not in your power, you know, I'll let you speak to that. But I'm just saying, from what I've heard in so many birth stories, is that, yeah, there were many women that didn't feel that they were in their power and made a choice based on what their heart's desire was. It was based on someone else's agenda, someone else's idea of what needed to happen. And we trusted in someone else's opinion or their experience more than our bodies as God designed us, you know? So I just took a different approach. And that's where I was just kind of like, again, I was 20 years old, and then I was 26 on my second. So I was just at an age where it was like, you couldn't, you know, you couldn't fool me. You couldn't tell me that it was better to have a medicalized birth. No way. No way. I just didn't think that's not what I wanted, you know? So, but it takes years and years to unravel some of that trauma and look at the story behind it. And yours even goes all the way back to how you were born. So that's where it really fascinates me, is like the science behind how we process trauma at our own birth, and then how we could potentially live that out in our own experience with our children, you know? And I know how I was born. I got all the information. So I had to keep that in mind of like, this is my story. I have to kind of, you know, flip the script a little bit, you know, and I have to look at it like, okay, I was also yanked out by forceps and for whatever reason. And then I was never breastfed. So for me, it was like, oh, there's the disconnect between my mother and I, you know. I was slept separately. My mom just worked full time when I was a baby. You know, or worked part time, was always gone. You know, my dad took care of me a lot. So there were just things like that where I just thought, like this kind of like makes sense, you know, why there's this disconnect. So I've studied it. That's how I look at it. You know, I'm not just studying like the physical aspect of birth, you know, what to do in an emergency or this. Like I was aware of the stories and the fear that we have in our societies, you know, around birth, and how we've been programmed to believe that it's scary and that it's dangerous and that it's not something we should or could do on our own, when in fact, I think birth is actually more powerful when it's left undisturbed. So, yeah.
I think that's beautiful. I wish I would have had that experience. And when it was like basically taken away from me,
Mm-hmm.
breastfeeding was like, this is something I'm going to do. There's no way that
Yeah.
I'm not going to breastfeed. And I ended up
Yes.
breastfeeding them both, each almost a year or a little bit over a year.
Okay.
And I think that was the most beautiful thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
And to really help me to connect with my children and to
Same.
feel like I was a woman and to
Same.
take back my control.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I had the same experience where I was very, very empowered by breastfeeding. I was just like, look at me. Like, I just pushed this thing out of my body and now I'm feeding it and it's growing and I love it. Like, oh my God, this is amazing. And everywhere I went, I just always had my tits out. It was just like, I was so proud of being able to nurse because I was never breastfed when I was young. And I was like, I'm being the change. Like, you know? So I've just been a little bit, you know, I've been very voicey about my experience. I've been very, you know, and that's like where existence came from too. These songs, it came from what happened when I gave birth too. Like that is a huge part of why I wrote these songs, because I never felt empowered like that in my life. I never felt so good about myself and like I did something great, you know, but the way I birthed and was raising my children, I just felt like, wow, I'm just like unstoppable. And I think that's where the music came through. Of like, I just have to express myself. I have to like express how I feel through this. And I want other people to feel this way and like do that in their own life because of how I feel right now. So, you know, a lot of it reflects that. Like, even when I say you are so powerful, I am so powerful, that's one of those moments. That's probably the most empowering moment of my life is when the way I gave birth. So I'm always thinking back because there wasn't anything else going on in my life other than I walked away from a marriage that I don't know was serving me, you know, walked away from the marriage and I had the young child and I was like living on my own, kind of doing my own thing. And that's when I taught myself piano and the songs came through. I was about 23. And yeah, and that was the beginning of that journey where all the songs just started coming through, you know, but it was a reflection of everything I had just experienced in those last few years after leaving home. You know, I left home around 17 and everything from 17 to 20 was like, it was a pivotal moment in my life where everything I did, you know, mattered. Yep.
Wow. You
I
took some
know.
big leaps, some big, I was always very safe. I went through school. I became a special ed teacher because nursing said no. And then
Mm,
and then I was like, well, I really don't feel like this is where I need to be, and then transformed into nursing, pediatric nursing, and then now I'm working on holistic health coaching because I realized that we can truly transform the pain that we experience into pleasure and work through
mm-hmm.
trauma in
Yeah.
ways that aren't inside the box of conventional medicine, which is what I was
Mm-hmm.
taught. It was where I was
Yeah.
raised.
Most of us. Yeah. It's unusual to hear people who are, you know, raised another way. It's fascinating. You know, I have many friends my age who are here where I live in Ojai, Southern California. I have a handful of friends who were born here, born at home, never vaccinated, you know, never medicated with pharmaceuticals, you know, breastfed until whatever, fed organic food their whole life, you know, and they're some of the healthiest, happy people that I know. And I'm just like, wow, I want my little humans to grow up and be like that, you know, and then they've had all their kids at home. It's a beautiful thing, you know, because birth is an imprint. The way we're born into this world, it's like it makes that imprint for us, you know, and that's why sometimes we want to repeat the same thing or like, you know, just out of what's the word I'm looking for, more like, you know, out of not thinking of another way, we would just automatically want to do things the same way that we were raised, you know, if we're not open-minded, if we're not forward thinking about things, you know. And I think that that's the box that a lot of people are stuck in, where they don't know that there's another way, you know. So I have a lot of compassion for people who are in that frame of mind, you know, who don't know, who aren't aware of their power and the fact that they do have a choice, because we do, you know, in every situation. I mean, I'm saying that we, as in, you know, we live in a very privileged part of the world. So I'm speaking to that. I'm not saying we as like as a whole, because I know there are a lot of people that do not have, real choice. But it's just our choice how we look at it, right? That's the whole key. So the more I talk about birth, honestly, I get really passionate again, because I feel so deeply, and I've just seen some beautiful experiences, and even just hearing your story, like it's sad for me to hear like how many women have had to endure trauma just to bring their children into the world, like the most loving experience they'll ever have, and then there's like so much trauma with it that they have to unravel sometimes for years, you know and we don't want to keep giving that story power, but we want to acknowledge what happened, and then acknowledge like what are you doing about it, you know what are we doing with our experiences of pain and suffering? Are we just retelling it over and over again, or are we feeling it, processing it, letting it go with whatever ways works for you individually, and then are we able to really help others? And I think that's what I've wanted. I've had these really positive, amazing births. So yeah, I can tell my story and make other people feel a certain way hearing that. But is that really helping? I actually want to be hands-on and help women in their experience so that they don't have to endure that kind of trauma, and just create something beautiful with them. So I wouldn't be surprised if at some point I just retire from the music and I just, become a midwife and do that as an old woman. It's in my vision, but you know what I mean? Just around like looking at at the stories of what happened, because you have a story where now you're able to reflect to women and say, you know what? I made this decision. Maybe it wasn't the best decision. Like I could, maybe going the medical route wasn't ideal. My children are here, thank God. But like, if I could do it another way, I would, and then this is how we share information with other women, because there's women still pregnant right now, 2020, bringing more babies into the world. I'm amazed. I'm just like, wow, we're like still bringing kids into the world despite like all this weird stuff happening. But we can't help it. We were born to reproduce and be these loving, incredible mothers. And so I even still would have another one, probably. Not wild. But, you have an important story, because your story can help awaken something, in others. So I'm glad that you're sharing about it. And I always encourage women to share about their birth stories and their traumas, and about where maybe like another option or another alternative or another route would have maybe been something a little easier, on the mind, body, and spirit. So that's what I want for everyone. Just want to see babies come into the world peacefully, right?
Absolutely. And I think it's important for people to share their stories in general, whether it's a birthing story, whether it's overcoming a chronic illness. It's not only a healing for you, but it helps other people find perspective, find their own way, to be able to work on themselves, because it's all a journey. We're all facing challenges and obstacles, and maybe your story gives them a little bit of inspiration in that path.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's really important, and with how we tell the story, like what happened. It's like at some point, what I find happens with a lot of people who are choosing to be coming from an empowered place, rather than like a place of victimhood, victim mentality of where we have this story, but we don't really know like what to do with it. Like we tell the story. This is what happened to me. I'm really angry about it. I'm really sad about it. I feel fucked up because of it, or I've had all this suffering because of it, or this is how it's sabotaged the good in my life. I can relate to all that. It's what we do with it. How do we transform these experiences of what we had like into something beautiful that really can effectively like touch others and help others? And I don't know anything other than just writing of my story and writing through music, and that's just one way. And that's just a way that somebody can like audibly, like when you listen to music, you're listening, but you're also feeling, you're listening So we're hearing and we're feeling a lot, you know, but it's not like a tangible thing. We're more just like we're visualizing it. We're fantasizing about it. We're imagining what it would be like, you know, and we're remembering the feelings that come with it, you know. So music's that beautiful journey where you get to just feel a lot, right? And sounds, you know, the all like these audible memories that can come back, like the nostalgia. That's what I experience with music a lot. If I hear something familiar or something from my childhood, you know, it takes me back to that place, that time. Same with smells, you know, when you have that like nostalgic feeling of just like, ooh, like I love this experience, you know, I've had this before. I love this. And, you know, that's a way that I see I'm able to do that, but part of me wants to be able to do more. So, you know, rather than just writing songs, I want to feel like, oh, that's enough, you know. But I think when I used to attend births and do the birth work stuff, that made me feel like I was contributing more to society, I guess, you know, like I'm hands on, you know. And when you're doing podcasts and we're writing books, we're writing songs, we're hosting women's retreats, we're, you know, these are all ways like I see everybody doing incredible work, all, and it's all for that same higher purpose. You know, we want to help uplift and transform others' lives while doing what we're passionate about. And that sustains us and that supports our life. You know, me being able to do music for a living is such a blessing. I never thought that I would be able to do that right now, even as a single mom. It's like, what? I'm doing that? Like, I have to remind myself, like, you're doing it. You're doing it.
That's awesome.
It's a trip. It is. I
It's
mean, I always fantasize it, but you know, you don't actually know what your life is going to unfold like. You can fantasize and dream about it as a kid, but when it starts to manifest, you're like, oh, damn, like, I've made it this far. Okay.
I love how you talked about how music, you know, you feel it, you experience, you hear it. I kind of bring in multisensory experiences into my coaching. So I'll use meditations or I'll use
Yeah.
music,
Yeah.
and then I'll have people use their bodies to actually feel and experience things more. And it's amazing to be able to transform that experience for them to smell things, for them to sense things and remember things from their past,
Yeah.
is so powerful in that journey to healing. And I know that you were going to share a song before we finish. Are you going to still do that?
Yeah, I can. Well, we've got a couple options. We've got,
Sure.
yeah, I've got Into the Wild, which I always love doing. That's like Me and the Shaker. So you can see how it sounds, right? You can see.
I love that one.
Is that too loud?
No, I think that one's awesome.
Okay. I mean, because it's that or it's acapella or it's me like putting on a track and singing along to that. But, you know, it just depends. It depends what, I mean, it's your show.
I
You can
think
have
Into the
whatever.
Wild. So one of the
Yeah.
things that I teach people in order to make it, because I primarily work with women, in order to make it multisensory, I actually give them a yoni egg. So they insert it inside, right? So I have one in there. And as you are going through those vocal sounds, the hey yeah, it's squeezing. You feel that
Ah,
squeezing and you begin to move energy
I love
through your
it.
body.
Okay.
It's a
I
very
don't have
unique experience.
I don't have mine in today, but okay. I kind of want to go put it in
Well, you can do it
there,
later.
right? I think I had it in at the event when I was in Florida. Yeah, I brought it with me. I had mine. I bring it with me, you know. It's fun.
I use it every day, and part of what I do is I incorporate different ones. So I didn't bring any with me today, but you know, there's different crystals that are
Yeah.
work for different energies, different
Yes.
emotions, relieving trauma. So I have the black, I think it's opal
Oh, I
or
have a black obsidian.
obsidian. That's what it is.
Yeah, I have one as well.
So the obsidian is when you're holding on to a lot of sadness, a lot of grief, you know, those emotions, and you really want to feel like you're crying. I insert the egg and I play your music or I listen to meditations, and doing that shift of energy as you squeeze, you feel those emotions coming out. Like your body's able to release them.
That's real.
It's
I
real
love it.
magic.
Right? It is. Yeah, I'd love to share this song. I guess you know, the most important thing to know about this song is that I wrote it in nature, and it's a song that I love hearing people sing to, and I love what happens when people sing this. I feel like they remember. I feel like they remember their ancestors. I feel like we remember our ancient voice. Um, that's what happens for me anyway, and I've had other people share. And you know, it's just me kind of reflecting on how I miss Canada and how I miss the wilderness and how I used to live. I used to be very, very free spirited. You couldn't hold me down, and I was just such a wanderer. And it's me reflecting on how I kind of miss home a little bit, you know. So the song is like that remembrance, taking me back, you know, and kind of being aligned with my lineage, and especially because my mother is native. My mother's side is native Algonquin from northern Canada. So, you know, so that's where the heyas come from, you know, where they come in. So I love when people sing that part. It makes, you know, it builds the song. So, yeah, so hopefully this comes out sounding okay. Into the wild I go, and into the wild I am. It's been a wild freedom time since I left my roots back home. Does that sound good?
Yes, it does.
I once tried to run away like a wild animal stray, running, hiding. I was a riding high in the sunset sky. Hey ah hey, hey ah hey, hey ah hey ah hey ah hey. Hey ah hey, hey ah hey, hey ah hey ah hey ah hey oh hey. All my life, for this time, I've been a warrior and I know why. I've been given the torch of the light. I walk in the darkness of the night. Years we fought for this freedom, the years I fought. I had a wisdom, now I see with new eyes. From this truth I cannot hide. Hey ah hey, hey ah hey, hey ah hey ah hey ah hey, hey ah hey, hey ah hey, hey ah hey ah hey ah hey, hey ah hey, hey ah hey, hey ah hey ah hey ah hey, hey ah hey, hey ah hey, hey ah hey ah hey ah hey oh hey. Now gotta believe I'm here to make a difference without fear being seen or heard. Like the birds, like the night, like the lion strong and fierce, like the whale singing. I'd like to be bringing peace to you, to me, to you, to me. Into the wild dog going into the wild I am. It's been a wild freedom trail since I left my roots back home. Into the wild I go, into the wild I am. It's been a wild freedom trail since I left my roots back home.
I love it. I love it. That was amazing. So before we wrap up, let people know where they can follow you on social or get your voice singing.
Socials. Oh yeah, that's my passion. It's like I love writing songs and performing, but I love teaching people how to sing. It's a beautiful experience. So I'm on Spotify under Shylay Ray Sunshine. My website is ShylaRaySunshine.com. But then IG is just at Shylay Ray, Shylah. There's an H, Ray. So you can find my coaching information on my website. There's a whole page that has all the information there. If somebody wanted to work with me, I do online and in person, of course. And yeah, and all the music's there. And then you'll find my videos. You know, it's all there. You can find me by either name.
And you can also find her on Spotify. I saw that you can sign up for vocal singing there too, because it popped
Really?
up for me today. Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that. I know I have a donate button, but I didn't know that.
What it sends to PayPal, and it talks about how you do vocals. Yeah. Very
Wow,
cool.
thanks. Socials.
Very
Appreciate
cool.
that. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming. It was truly a pleasure. Thank you, anybody that's listening. I want to remind you to support children with special needs and children that have been abused, to help me make gift boxes for them. Go ahead and donate. I will share the link below this podcast. This is Diane Vick. Aloha.